Hello and welcome to another Artis Opus React video. My name is Byron and today I'm going to be reacting to viewers' miniatures. So if you would like to send your miniatures in, it is submit@artis-opus.com. And if you want to include a couple of notes, people have been including more of them. You know, I'm particularly trying to work on my blending. I wasn't happy with the sword. I don't like metallics. Whatever it is, that is absolutely fine and genuinely will help me out in videos like this to give you some better advice. So I'll be reacting on how cool I think it is, potentially suggesting some future improvements and just, you know, letting you know my feeling about the piece. We've got something pretty nice here. Powerful blue. Is that Caribbean blue? Well, let's read. Dan Johnson from Essex in the UK has used it off his old uni sports team for a Blood Bowl miniature, which is pretty appropriate. I mean, the first thing that strikes me about this is that there is a lovely contrast between the green grass with a nice clean white stripe down it, and then you've got a kind of that Caribbean bluey, tealy turquoisey colour, which just plays off it really nicely, and that's even got some little white symbols on it too. So I think it's really successful. First attempt at airbrushing Zenithal and light coats of Baharoth blue, that's the blue, to achieve the shading on the armour panels. Struggle with the face, don't worry about the face, mate, everyone struggles with them. Brows, nose, cheekbones, just hit them with a little highlight, and if you mix in a little bit of a red wash with any washes that you've used on the skin, that will kind of bring a little bit of pinky life to what you were doing. Not loads, you know, just a touch, but that will make a difference. This is really good, dude. Maybe I would put on some very subtle washes mixed down with Lamy Medium on that blue to add depth to the recesses of the armour, or the little shiny shoulder bits. I'm going to call them pauldrons again. I got corrected in the last one, and I've already forgotten what they were called, but that's solid, just a bit more shading within the sections, and I think it'll look great. All right, this is a big swirly thing. So Nathan from Kenilworth in the UK. My bad attempt at dry brushing an air elemental. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's quite cool. Try to apply a technique from your great unclean one, but clearly need to improve. Right, I'm gonna stop you there, Nathan. I was painting a 86-pound model, you know, around, I think that's probably around, close to the $100 or euros mark. So that is an expensive piece, and you're comparing it to a board game piece. My miniature is like tip top of the you know, injection molding plastic curve, because GW are at the front of that, with very little competition. And then you've got here what looks like it's a like a more board gamey plastic, so Restic, which is a mixture of resin and plastic, or some type of rubbery PVC equivalent. You shouldn't be expecting it to come out the same quality, because what you're starting on isn't the same quality, so do not beat yourself up. I think you've done a pretty decent job with the level of the detail that is there on that model. 2 pointers from me. The overall impression is really good. I would take your highlights slightly lighter, so on that bottom purple bit and on the the swirly Space Wolvesy blue section, maybe take them just a little bit higher. But paint that base, the actual surface of the base as well, and then it will stand out nicely from its base. You know, pick whatever lands it in the environment you're imagining for this piece, but yeah, don't beat yourself up, mate. That's fine, and if you're doing it on a higher quality miniature, I think you probably would have a higher quality paint job. Yeah, don't disproportionately be unfair to yourself. All right then, this is cool. I love that pose. So this is from Josh in Pennsylvania. I'm interested in any general tips. I'd like to get better and better, focusing on smoother blending and highlight placement for this model, and it's probably my best work to date in that area. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'm not fully satisfied with the base. I'm sure I can help there. Any suggestions? So your highlight placement is great, particularly on those cloths on the front, you know, from the belt and below on the front of the model. You've blocked in stuff really nicely. It looks quite painterly and beautiful, really, so be really proud of that. The base, it's just too flat, so a couple of things. You have unpainted elements on there. It needs to be painted. Everything on the base needs to be painted. There are some tiny exceptions, but 99+% of the time, what is on your base needs to be painted, period. So get a flat base coat on the ground, and then a couple of lighter dry brushes, normally up through bony colors is what people use on you know, just brown ground like that. And then your stones, pick a color. It could be a contrast, could be a point of interest, but the typical would be gray. And if you just sneak some tufts in anywhere where you imagine it is somewhat sheltered and would be more moist, just think about in your head, sheltered areas under rocks, you know, that type of stuff. Sneak in some tufts there or some static grass. The entire thing will completely come to life. If that's not the environment you've imagined for your big bad space marine, that's cool. There are more dusty, you know, war-torn planetary equivalents. And then the other thing is, you could get a couple of little, you know, like autumn leaves on there or something like that, or points of contrast with color, or even drop a skull on. But yeah, don't worry about it, man. You're your technical painting is really, really good. So I think whatever you do with the base, you'll manage to smash. Oh, hello. So this is from someone who used to be one of my staff members in an old business. So hello, Jamie Giblin from Manchester in the UK, just down the road. How could I improve this? Normally I'd paint my base in black, but the dark blue here is to help identify it as the Champions class in God's Tier. Cool, good information. Really useful to have the information with the stuff. This is a very solid paint job and is going to be difficult to critique because it kind of does what it needs to a really good degree, and the color choices are solid. So a couple of ways you could go. The eyes are done well as well for something at that scale. A couple of ways you could go with this. So I'm going to pick on the armor. If it's okay for it to be rusty, you could wash in some, Doomball, Scrag, Troll Slayer. They're the colors that I typically, throw about for metallic rusting on the channel. Just mix them in with a bit of medium, a bit of water, or just, localize them in the recesses. You could also take some weathering up the feet if you wanted, just some dirt or earth. If that doesn't fit and you want it to be, clean and pristine, then a soft blue wash on the armor, which is actually super historically accurate. They start off blue and then they age towards silver, which is why ones in museums are silver rather than blue. There's a lot more blue tints in fresh armor historically. You could wash that in and that'll look kind of regal and pretty fancy as well. You could even take some of those purple hues and mix it in with the blue or something like that. But it's super solid, and I bet the army or force looks pretty solid as well. All right, Ben Watkins from London. This is really cool. This is Ace. So this is like a mini diorama. Is it based on something in particular? Inspired by GW artist Jamie Martinez and his Howling Griffins piece, except I'm a Blood Angels player and was so scared of painting that much yellow. Don't blame me, mate. It's not an easy looking scheme. This is really, really nice. Love the overall feel of it. I'm going to pick on something that is absolutely nothing to do with the painting here, really. You could clean up that base rim. It's black already, so scrape off the excess and then put it there and you'll have a hard finish to the base. That will make it seem more like a piece that is there for representation, or presentation rather. What I would say though is two things. You could take the environment up the shoes and toes, even if it only goes to ankles of your Marines, you could take one of those colors from that base, mix it with water, and then just go very carefully wash it around the feet a few times to embed them with their environment. The one thing I'm going to pick on is the posing actually. So your painting is super crisp. The gold you've chosen, that like warm yellow gold, is perfect. It bounces off it. You've got clean stripes on those little shields. There's not particularly much that I can criticize painting wise, but that guy at the front who's kind of ready for the Tyranid coming for him, his pose interacts with the Tyranid nicely. The other guy, I don't know if you could have put his hand higher or his shield higher or something like that, but that guy looks like he's a normal Marine dumped into a diorama situation. The guy at the back's kind of doing his thing, being religious. That's cool. Obviously, I know loads about the 40k fluff here. Doing his thing, being religious. Sorry. Anyway, the guy's just kind of stood. It looks like he's been dropped from a squad and he's not reacting or interacting as much with that Nid. If he had the shield up in its face and the sword was higher for a swing, that would do a lot for how this piece feels in general, in my opinion. But overall execution is amazing, and yeah, that's very, very, very cool. This made me want to do a diorama. Good job, Ben. Next, oh wow, what's this? I've only been in the hobby for a couple of months and I wanted your feedback on this model. I was wondering how I could improve on painting cloth, if you have any advice for shaky hands, from Caleb Hall in Mississippi. So Caleb, shaky hands, just brace. I'm going to make the camera wobble by doing this, but elbows down, make a stable platform with this hand. Other one in that, this one is holding the mini, this one can rest against it. Keep them close and don't be afraid to get right in there with your nose. This is why I find painting in front of a camera particularly hard. The other one is you can base on the rim of your desk. So as the rim goes across, you just make like hands here, or wrists here, and that will really help with the control and the shaking. Right, the cloth, I think mainly it's the texture, dude. The finish of it is quite shiny, so I'm presuming you have used a contrast or a shade to get there. Let me know if that's wrong, but that shininess I think is kind of countering what it should be. So you could just matte varnish it and that might make it look better instantly. Don't worry about having to do big stripy highlights down things. The way that I'd approach this is start off a bit lighter. So take what you think is that mid-tone, start off lighter, wash it, and then if you're worrying about where to put highlights as a beginner, just put them where the wash didn't land, and there's a good chance that that's going to look pretty nice, basically, as long as the wash wasn't too heavy. So yeah, that's a great way to approach it. I love his scroll though, that's really nice. And then those heads hanging off his staff thing, a few green washes and a couple of darker washes to push the depth and the contrast in them will probably go down well because they are meant to be, you know, dead heads. Grimy looking Necrons, nice chipping, really nice chipping. Gary Martin, painted using your chipping method. All right, well, you followed it like possibly better than I did it. The main problem is the green yellow of the energy. I think it's all right, man. Using a base of glazing, green colors and war colors, then cool areas within by darkness. Okay, I mean, I think these are really solid, and just a little bit of glowing around them would probably go a long way, I think. And the way that I would do that, there's a couple of ways, but the most efficient way that I often talk about in these videos is a very soft white dry brush with a small or baby D just around the light sources. Then you bring in like a darker glaze. This would be your Inky by Darkness, very soft, like soft and subtle. Then do that dry brush again, only closer to the source, and then bring in a lighter thing. I spoke about Tesseract Glow, but it could be any of those, you know, those warm green colors. And then take your yellow in this situation and dry brush that on the very edges, the closest to the source. I think that would do a lot for how your stuff looks. You've been quite controlled with it in the guns, and I like that. I like it when it doesn't spill out to areas that it wouldn't reach, but around the globes, the eyes and stuff like that, it'd be cool. I think your chest glowing is actually super successful. But yeah, like really solid job, lovely chip in. They look grimy as hell, and the silver metallics there, I think, are kind of the unsung heroes of the piece. Really nice tonally. Have a look here. So we got a squad of ultramarines. My first minis painted since returning to the hobby after a 20-year break. Solid. Painted these using dry brushing, kind of happy. Rims have since been painted black. Come on. Excellent. Drakenhof Nightshade all over, null oil contrast, Want to find something that works without having to re-establish the base color. Don't be afraid to just dry brush the base color again, dude. Even though if it's going pretty much over the entire piece, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure it's thinned appropriately and you're not adding, you know, unneeded or unnecessary texture, and you'll be absolutely fine. These are solid though. Yeah, I'd repeat your base blue, whatever that is, whichever it is from your choice, and do that on the areas that haven't been hit by your wash, and then within those areas do your further highlights and you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, first mini I painted from Mason in Western Australia. All right, cool. Solid metallics. So the one thing I'm gonna pick on here is that it looks like you've used a black wash on the lighter green sections. Maybe that should be a dark green wash because the black is pulling the color away from it in a way that perhaps wasn't your original intent, might have been, but yeah, it does look pretty solid. That, and you've got a bronzy metallic and you've got a silver metallic. They've all been washed with black, which is fine, but you could have got away with either before or after doing a soft dry brush all over of silver, and that'll highlight all of them. You know, you can very gently kind of buff it round in circles and that'll just hit edges as long as you've removed it on your brush. Test it elsewhere, test it on your texture palette first, and then what you'd be doing is you'd be highlighting all of the different sections of the model. So sequencing wise, spray them silver, do the gold bits, dry brush it all with a highlight, then do your details, then do your washes, and it's kind of like a dipping approach. Dipping means, you know, washing the entire thing and doing the most of the detailing beforehand. But it's really good for a first one. Nice glow around the eyes. I wouldn't say the weapon, the scythe, has been successful, but that type of thing is hard to make work even when you've been painting for years. So you could just base coat that 2 or 3 times, thin your paint with a nice light color, and then wash it. You know, once, if that doesn't work, wash it again, and you might be able to get like a cool glowing blade or something like that. But a great attempt for a first miniature. Oh, nice, good photography as well. Norman Reese. Norman, you have lovely texture in your armor, or patina rather. Doesn't look like you've added texture, but the whatever it is you've got going on in that armor is cool. So hear your opinion on my Ragmain. I like him a lot. I always have trouble with metallics, whether I use GW or Vallejo, for example. They always dry too fast and seem to clog the brush. Even tried drying retarder, but it made the color greasy. Do you have any tips on that issue? I don't know if you're from a hot or dry environment, or both. You know, people in Australia, sorry, really am sorry. Just paint at 3 in the morning, it'll be fine. So, or Texas, you poor people. Anyway, metallics. I think sometimes because they damage brushes, people use small, crappy old brushes for metallics, but using a bigger one will hold a larger body of paint, and a larger body of paint is less volatile and less affected by the environment around you. So it could just be maybe you just need to use a bigger brush, or you know, use dippy well palettes or a wet palette. Either of those that will maintain the paint. GW and Vallejo have got some great metallics. GW's golds aren't as good unless they're Retributor, which I think is one of the best and most wonderful to work with golds out there. And then Vallejo, the silvers are just, you know, they are supreme, they're silvers. I use them all the time. So yeah, I don't have any issues with them or anything like that. So maybe just holding more on your brush and I shouldn't think there's any reason to add anything in other than water. If you want to make them cover more easily while diluted, you can mix a bit of brown in with gold and a bit of black in with silver, and that will do, you know, absolute magic as far as coverage goes. I would use like a Doomball brown if you're going for kind of neutral, Scrag brown if you're going, Doomball's quite warm actually. Scrag brown will be even lighter, and just any, you know, any black in with your silver will help coverage. But he's cool, mate, that's lovely. And also like the base isn't fully in focus because it's focused on the model, but the base looks really cool as well. Nice, Lizard Mum, been a while. Ash Lowe from Twitter, trying to achieve a really dark, rich red on the Seraphim, showing my age by calling it Lizard Men, but it seems kind of dull or flat. I was wondering if you have any suggestions. It's nice red. A lot of the time, mate, it's just about contrast. So ironically, if you wanted to make it look deeper and darker and richer, you could just highlight like the underside or the top side of all of those scales with a orangey red, and that would in comparison make the other stuff look deeper. Also, quite a lot of this mini is shiny, and that's pulling attention away from some areas because you're seeing the reflections there. Looks fairly solid, but if, you know, certain aspects of it were matte, then maybe it wouldn't be so difficult for that. Like you can see the matte, like the shield's got a bit more matte as you've highlighted it up, because the contrast or the wash that you've used, don't know which, has been kind of overridden by the dry brushing. But yeah, just try taking your highlights a little bit brighter on the red, and in comparison, that'll make the depths look deeper. The other thing, which is a bit weird, is you can put blue in the depths of red, and that really, really does deepen it quite a lot, or purple. Nice, this is cool, this is kind of cartoony. So this is from Pascal Henke from Germany. Note from Ronan. This is Cad Bane from Star Wars. This will likely be the only time I know the name of a model and its origin, and you don't. Ronan's correct. Didn't have a clue. It's cool though, it's nice. Nice Star Wars. Anyway, just began painting a couple of months ago. Good job, Pascal, very nice. That's a painterly name. You sound like you should be an artist. A lot of the techniques feel really intuitive. When it comes to leather and cloaks, the results look strange. Okay, I think I'm gonna be able to help here. I would really appreciate some advice on painting leather, especially for cloaks. All right, super easy, Pascal, like really, really easy. When beginning, it's very, very easy to concentrate on the recesses and the folds on cloaks and stuff like that, and it just gets messy. Do not worry about it. You can see here, you've left too much of your dark first colors or your base color in the recesses. So there is an instant fix to this. Just base coat the entire thing in a lighter base coat than you were intending. Wash it once, maybe twice if you like. Check out our how to paint leather video for seeing me doing this, and then work your highlights up from there, because what you've got is there's too much contrast. It looks quite cool and kind of like cartoony and cell shaded, but from what you've said, that's not what you're going for. Just start brighter, wash, repeat your base coat on the areas that are raised, so haven't been hit by the wash, and then highlight within those instead of going around that on the rest of your piece. Hope that makes sense. Do let me know if that wasn't clear enough. Basically, you need to start with a brighter color all over and you'll be absolutely fine. But your control's really good and your highlights are nice, so I think you're gonna be doing some pretty tasty stuff if you've only been painting for 2 months. Supremely crisp and clean base as well, wonderful. All right, pups. So we've got Stephen Milton in the UK. I'm looking for tips on my detailing and dry brushing, many thanks. So trying to work out if this is right. I recognize the style of that sword, so maybe this has been done following our tutorial. If it hasn't, do check out our tutorial. The one thing that I can tell instantly from here that I'm going to pick on is the flesh looks a bit flat, and the reason for that is you've got all these, these wonderful, disgusting folds and buboes and like sagging areas and all of that other wonderful Nurgle stuff, and it's pretty much all the same color, whether it's deep in the recess or it's on the raised area. Now, on the strength of the one that we did on the channel is that it changes a lot. It goes from purple to bright green, basically. And I think a purple wash, diluted carefully with aluminium medium, either selectively in the recesses or even all over the model, would do wonders for this paint job, because it had just pushed the fact that if stuff is recessed, it is hidden, and we're trying to exaggerate that and bring contrast into that. So yeah, just a purple wash, dude, in the recesses, or it could be a dark green one. I wouldn't involve black, don't go near black, but any dark green purple or something like that mix, that would work as well. It's just to push the contrast on it. Really cool base though, and the sword has been done really nicely and stuff like that. So I just think you need to add some depth to that green skin, basically. Purple and green just looks nice as well. Whoa, wow. Okay, Tommy, AKA Miniatures by Night. Well, this this does look like miniatures by night. This is funky. Painting in the hobby for a year now, learned a lot in lockdown. Very nice. Any tips on painting a larger scale painting without an airbrush, as I struggle to keep my blend smooth, such as on this Morty's wings? And also he wanted to know about painting black armor. So briefly on the black armor on a piece like this, I just think it needs to be matte black to contrast with the other stuff, and you don't even need to highlight it whatsoever. And then what you could do, it could be, it could be satin, wouldn't have to be matte, but a flat black would be fine. And then if you've got light sources, just have those reflecting in certain areas of it, and that'll look cool as hell. You don't need to add more to this piece. It's funky. It's just snazzy as hell. So yeah, nice and simple for the black bit. Painting larger scale models of the wings. Now I can tell what's happened here is basically what you've tried to do is you tried to get a smooth blend, and you've tried to do that by smoothly blending, ignoring the detail, but actually you should be using that detail to make your blend look smoother. So check out our Flawless Blends hacked video on this. Basically it's about painting by distraction. I think you should be working with the texture of your model more. So don't try and force it through, with gentle dry brushing or stippling or something like that. You can get fades super easily, and at that point you can involve washes or something if you want. Instead of trying to push it with layers and paint, if you gently buff that with dry brushing from the outside in on the wings, I think you'll find it way easier. But that is cool. That has impact as a piece, so really awesome. And I like the colors of his, that kind of bronzy, goldy NMM is really nice too. Ooh, nice pictures. This is clean. Oh, he's from the Netherlands. They're all good painters. Right, this is an Assault Intercessor. I've used Series D on the armor based on your YouTube video. Pretty good as well. Nice selection of volumes. That right shoulder pad on the front shot is really very, very crisp. Main struggle of the Mini is the glazing on the chainsword. Looks good to me, mate. And the leather bits, I'd appreciate any feedback to improve these. So the leather, just gently buff it up with a brush beforehand. Honestly, I can't see his gun holsters too easily, but gentle buffing goes a really long way. Check out Fohammer's video recently. He uses D to just, it looks like he's doing nothing and he carries on buffing, and then suddenly he's got this awesome, beautiful miniature there, or piece of a miniature. The chainsword, I think that's pretty successful, man. Absolutely fine. Couple of things on that. I think you've broken up the outer contours of your stripes possibly too much for me. So you want people to know what it was, even if it's been beaten up to hell and back and, killed a billion things. I don't particularly have any, I think the glazing is absolutely fine on the sword. This would look cool with some blood on it, but that is always scary. So, take that or leave it. Base has been executed really crisply as well. Just overall, very lovely execution. And nice tones. That's worked really, really well. Whoa. Gundam Tau certainly is. Those base rims, they should be black, and the basing elements should be painted. Unsurprisingly, we're starting from the base on this. The actual models, for what they are executed, exactly kind of as they should be. Clean, crisp, obvious colors. The base rims are making me cry inside, so you don't want to pull attention. You've got these funky, crazy colors going on all over your model. You do not need more attention on that base. Keep it on the model. It is a cool idea, and you should be attracting attention to that. So the bases should be painted, not naked rocks or sand or something like that. And I would do the base rims black, but you could choose another color if you like. But don't choose a color that's already present on the model. It's jarring with it. Second thing, it looks like on the blue and the yellow, you've maybe used like a black wash or something. I would use even if it's a dark one, like a dark blue or a dark yellow, but a mid one should be fine, because unless you're going for like a smudgy look, or like a sooty look or a war-torn look, I think those colors could be crisper, we're not eating them. They could be crispier, much crispier, and they could be popping more, which would fit completely with the ideas that you have for this army. Really cool idea though, and actually very solid execution. Okay, this is nice. This is from Sebastian in Austria. With the Mini, I tried some new techniques like stippling and a bit of glazing. Just a really good Mini in general, dude. I'm not happy with the metal parts. Why? I don't feel the highlights with my base and layering paint. It is harder to highlight metallics just in general. You could, if you wanted, even using these photos as reference, you could slightly buff, let's take his eagle staff. You could slightly buff with silver, mix with gold, that gold, whatever the gold is that you've used, on the areas that have caught the light here, and that'll look really cool. Or you could individually highlight the wings. But I'd say the metallics are super crisp, dude. Like, nice execution. One thing that I'd change on this is that central olive green section of the loincloth. I'd put highlights on that because everything else on the miniature is highlighted and it just kind of stands out by as a result of not having that. Any tips on how to get good metal highlights? Just go to silver, mate. Check out recent videos. You can go to silver and then you can wash it back if it's ended up a color that you're not happy with. I'm thinking of getting into NMM to have more control. NMM is hard, but you know, you could go halfway between the two. Look at these pictures. Look at like the back of its thing in that photo from the rear. Look where the light has reflected above, like at the very top of that, and then just gently buff them. Don't be afraid to use a little bit of delicate dry brushing to highlight metallics. It works wonders and it's super forgiving and it does the blending for you. So why wouldn't you? All right, Richard from Melton Mowbray in the UK with a pretty cool kind of volume painted plague dude. Just a plague marine, isn't it? Could I please have some general feedback on the attached model and how it could be improved? First attempt to paint outside of the base wash highlight method. Well, awesome job, first of all. You've picked a good mini and you've executed it well. So what hasn't worked on it? I'd say it's fairly successful. You need to paint the base, but I think maybe you know that that base isn't finished. I could be wrong though. It needs to be painted. Seal it before you paint it so that gravel doesn't start coming off. You can do that by using any spray varnish on it or watered down PVA, but that can be reactivated by paint. So I just use a spray from a can. The one area that stands out for me on this dude is that you should be putting some more age into his weapon and stuff like that. So you're painting Nurgle, green washes, blue washes, rusty effects, anything like that. You've got crisp execution. You should be really proud of this. And that smoky effect coming out of the thing on his backpack is, you know, you've got the talent to be able to do it. Just pick some areas and make sure that they look as old and as horrible as they should be, and it'll look great. Pin vice drill out your gun barrel as well. Makes a big difference on every 40k miniature in the world, but lovely job. All right, we've got a bust. Sam L from Manchester in the UK, probably someone else who's just a few miles down the road from me. Friend introduced me to your videos and I've been binge watching them. Biggest struggle is red. It either becomes pink or brown. Thanks to the advice. Any bonus tips on painting albino's skin? He ended up more IT worker than albino. Stuff like that's hard, but you can go with associations quite well. So maybe just look more how albino hair should be. And if you make that tight association, you know, get on Google. Such a great resource for stuff like this. Maybe that'll make the associations with the skin easier for people because I couldn't help the albino skin. That is a very specific request. Painting red though, should be quite an easy one. So the classic heavy metal old school way is to work up from black. You work up from black, base coat, or undercoat rather, and then your first base coat is black mixed with red, and then you reduce the amount of blacks. It's meant to look about 50-50, but that probably requires you to use like 3 parts red or even 4 parts red, so 1 part black because black is so strong. And work your way up, and then what that will mean is your recesses can be a darker version of the same color, and your highlights can go to, you know, a bright red touching on orange without having to be necessary orange. And the other thing that you can do is even if you go to like a bright orange highlight, you can glaze it all back down again with a thin red, very, very thin red, but that'll filter it and that'll kind of recontext it, and it'll make it look like it's rooted in red rather than finishing in orange. But yeah, try going up from that, and I'm not sure exactly what paints you're using, but Mephiston has amazing coverage. You've also got things like bold pyrrole red from Monument, which is supreme, but the particular red you're choosing will make a big difference actually. Cool. This is from Daniel Mender in Germany. Oh, this is awesome. A little bit dark on the photography, but that shot with the model where you can see its chest and its arm, the colors on the metallics are awesome here. Really happy with my Void Dragon, but the next miniature should be better. Hopefully Byron has some advice or ideas. So looks like the base is solid. I quite like the colors you've chosen. Yeah, hard to criticize, man. Pick on one little thing. The little like scorpion tail that you've got coming off, it looks like you need to remove more paint off your brush before doing those little highlight accents. So in the last video we did where I was removing paint off my brush and doing like little delicate details, you'll see me like touching it on my thumb or the base of my model loads before I go in and then do delicate things on the model. This was on the lava blade. So do go and check that out. I removed quite a lot of the paint, but you want to use paint with good coverage. So, you know, find a solid white that has good coverage in this situation, or even use an off-white if it's got better coverage, you know, like Space Wolves, Orphan Grey, or, you know, something in that kind of spectrum. Use a nice pointy brush, and don't be afraid to do tests, you know, close to the mini, whether it's like on your hand or on its base or whatever it is, and then get to the mini with a finer brush with less on it, but the right amount and the right consistency. That's cool though. If that is part of an army, please send in some pictures because I would love to see it. All right, this is cool. That is very cool. Okay, so this is from Zachary Griffith in California. Recently suffered some arm injury, significantly limiting my ability to paint miniatures. I'm sorry, dude, that sounds crap. Saw your video showcase techniques that gave fantastic quality in a short amount of time via dry brushing. Be waiting till my arms fully recover before I paint more miniatures, but a few weeks back with care and patience, I used your techniques to paint a Space Marine for a custom chapter I have planned. Still needs to be base. I'll do a landing pad in a red desert. Intend to use a glossier back for my next test and do something with the leather, but any tips would be welcome. Additional colors or change of colors would be appreciated. I mean, this is a successful scheme. That chainsword, I presume it hasn't been done. Maybe you're waiting to do that, but that should and could be a different color, or you could at least make more of the fat. You know, maybe you base coat it in a flat, heavy covering silver, and then wash it just so it looks a little bit different. But you could, even if you're struggling with control at the moment, you could stipple on some blood or stipple chipping or something like that on the chainsaw, because it is going to, you know, that's the business end. But the colors are really successful, I'd say. You could probably have got away with going one step lighter with your final dry brush of silver. Just, you know, it catch things like, and you can, even if control is an issue, you can still, the nice thing about dry brushing is it kind of goes with what the intent is of what you're doing. You don't have to specifically perfectly do it. So even if you've got a big brush, I have a brush around, I always have a brush around, just doing this type of motion will only highlight this very tip, that tiny edge there. So for example, if you look at my nail in this situation, just that rolling, to exaggerate it, that would just be highlighting the tip of the nail. And you can use that, you know, around shoulders, on edges of things, and it doesn't require a huge amount of control, but you can still just hit the edges as long as you don't have too much paint on the brush. So maybe doing that would make it pop, but do send it back once you've done your base man. That is great. And for someone who's struggling with control and ability, I think that's really successful. I mean, even his eyes are good. So yeah, be proud. Whoa, that is a lot. Okay, so Thomas from Rostock in Germany. This has everything going on. Latest top class model. Problem is I've invested lots of hours, but it's not as good as I want it to be. I think I'm going to be able to get some good advice for this one. Try to achieve realistic bark, for example. Therefore, I used like 5 brownish tones mixed with black and white, and then glazing in with dark brown and highlighting with green and yellow brown. All right, I have some off the wall advice here. What you need to do is paint 5 of these in way less time. So have this guy on the side, pick up a squad, and just try and do them as efficiently as possible. Don't, you know, crazy rush, but it looks to me like the amount of time you've spent on the model maybe actually has been to the detriment. You've been trying to make this one thing perfect, but actually it would probably, like, at the point at which you were fine-tuning it, it's probably really good anyway. So just paint more and try and do them a bit more efficiently, and you'll just get more practiced at the blending, the glazing, the NMM, and stuff like that. And you know, maybe do them all at once, or maybe try and do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, or whatever. But yeah, you need to, in my opinion, just try and get your way through more miniatures to get yourself used to the motions, and that is going to be really helpful to you. It's kind of like getting in reps at a gym, really, or for practicing your form at a gym. You just need to get some more reps of this type of work, and it will get easier. You know, the more swords you do, the more that you'll learn, and the more that you'll learn about the paint or choose different paints or stuff like that. Another thing as well, take the amount of paint you're using and possibly literally even half them. You know, you can add a dark brown to your mid brown instead of using another brown in between them and stuff like that. Your control's really good and the idea is fantastic and the colors are solid. So I just get in some more reps for practice. There's maybe slightly too many colors in there, like that purple loincloth stands out quite a lot, and the red of his skin. You can maybe use a mother highlight color, so you got the same highlight color all over the piece to help hold it together as well. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's been nice. I really enjoyed the Grimdark one a lot actually, but I also enjoyed having, you know, a wide selection of miniatures from all these different manufacturers and, you know, different abilities or requirements from the painters. So yeah, always interesting to look at. Hopefully you found the video useful. My favorite, it's very Space Wolvie-ish, I guess, so it's either going to be from the Netherlands, sorry, forgotten the name, and then the Ragnar. Both of those are great, really liked both of them. They both had nice texture on the armor, and I'm really into, you know, like patinas and stuff like that. I thought those were phenomenal though. Let me know if you agree or disagree with that, or what was your favorite. If you'd like to submit a miniature, the address is submit@artis-opus.com. artisopusbrushes.com. We'll link that down below. I'm sure we'll still get questions about it. We always do. That's fine though. Thank you very much for providing more information with them. It makes my job a lot easier. And then just the normal stuff. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you're notified for future content, both React to videos and tutorials. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next video.